Well, it's another Wednesday. It's another SNL show, and we are live as always. My name's Lane.
And I'm Scott. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, and this week we're going to be doing more of like a fireside chat, if you will, about maybe some stories and things that we're seeing in the marketplace. Because over the last couple of weeks, over our team meetings, Scott, we've actually had these discussions of are things starting to cool off? Because things over the last, I don't know, 6 months have been insanely crazy. Like so much so that I've never seen it in my 10-year career. You've never seen it in your 30+ year career of how crazy it was. But are things finally normalizing? Are they starting to, maybe let's just dive in and start talking about stuff like that.
Absolutely. Lane is right on. You know, our viewers, if you've watched us before, you're so used to seeing us posting stats and whatnot to back up what we're saying. But today we want to just literally banter back and forth with what we're seeing out there in the field every single day. And we are seeing a little bit of a shift. Will we end up being in what's called a buyer's market? We had that discussion this morning on our morning huddle call. I don't think we're going there, but we're definitely seeing a move away from an absolute seller monopoly.
So talk about that, because we've had listings specifically where we've had, I don't know, more than 20, 30 offers on them, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, more than 10% above the list price. So does that mean on some of our newer listings, are we not seeing that as much anymore? Are we still seeing multiple offers? Are we still seeing above asking prices? Like what's going on there?
And I think what we can do is we can segment our price points too. And Lane will agree with this because, again, we've strategized within our own team and our 30, 40 plus sales we've had already this year. We're seeing a shift in that $1 million plus market. So let's talk about that for just a moment. And you might think at first glance, my gosh, $1 million, well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, believe it or not, if you know from some of our previous market update calls, that is under the average and median selling prices for today for most of coastal Orange County and the marketplaces we serve. So again, diving into the $1 million plus category, just with what we've seen in the last few weeks on a couple of our listings that we've taken, where perhaps a month, 2 months ago, we would have seen upwards of 10 offers. We're getting great activity, still multiple showings. Our showing time calendar is absolutely completely booked, but we're seeing about 3 to 6 offers, Lane, would you say?
I mean, it depends, like you said, on the price point. For that particular price point, yeah, maybe 3 to 6 offers. And also, what we've been seeing that's a little bit different is, let's say a neighborhood comp, something across the street, closed for $1 million. We used to put homes up for sale for $1,050,000, maybe $1,100,000, and still get that. Right. So maybe we might not have that luxury as much anymore of, okay, let's just go $100,000 or $50,000 more than the house across the street that recently sold. We might have to go a tad higher or right about where that one sold for to still generate multiple offers and a buzz and hopefully still get that bidding war. But we're not seeing 20 plus offers, 30 plus offers or what have you on very aggressively priced homes. And
I think to tap onto what you're saying there, Lane, we're not seeing that incremental price appreciation from sale to sale, where, as Lane said, we could tap on $50,000. So that tells us perhaps, again, continuing our discussion on the $1 million plus category, we're seeing probably kind of a ceiling, a threshold being hit. And whether it's buyer pushback, affordability, just basic psychology, we're not sure, but we are seeing a bit of a threshold being held. And as the new listings come on the market, we may push a little bit, but we're not going to incrementally just tack on $50,000. And another note we'd like to see, we do work with a lot of buyers as well. And we've actually seen in our marketplace just recently in the last 2 weeks for one of our great clients, it's looking in about the $1.2 million to $1.3 million range. We've seen 2 of the homes that they've actually looked at have price adjustments downward. We haven't seen that in quite a while. And I think that also plays into what Lane was saying about everyone is incrementally jumping up those list prices, and the buyers have just pushed back a little bit. As I said, we've seen $25,000 and $50,000 price adjustments downward on a couple of these listings we're following.
Yeah, and conversely now, we're working with buyers that are looking around the $700,000 range, single family detached in Orange County, maybe like Anaheim Hills, Yorba Linda, Buena Park, where like those particular areas. And if it's a nice, clean home priced at $700,000, you're still getting 20, 30, 40 plus offers. And that price point is still on fire, just because there's a lot more first-time home buyers that are still trying to take advantage of, even though we're not at the historic low interest rates, they're still very low, or they're about what they were this time last year. So when you can get something in the mid 3s as a first-time home buyer, you still want to jump all over that because it's still a great rate.
No, absolutely. And again, it seems like we've segued now down into our sub-$1 million properties. And again, to Lane's point, we see things 800,000. And if you think about it from that first category we discussed, that's about a 25% drop in what that price is. And of course, conversely, that creates 25% more affordability, 25% less down payment needed, and you're just going to have a higher demand in that category of buyers. But we are seeing a little bit of a shift there, are we not, Lane?
In that particular price point, not yet, not yet. At least
Okay.
I don't think so. And it maybe we're just looking at the homes that are priced fair, or what you call fair market value. They're not trying to, the sellers aren't trying to push the price up very, like really high compared to what's been selling. And the sellers that are trying to push the prices up at a higher price point, they were able to get away with it over the last few months. You're probably not able to get away with it anymore. You have to pre at what we call fair market value to still get that buzz, still get a quick sale and get a good price and a good buyer, and maybe even a couple offers.
I think Lane's right on with that. And something else that we're also seeing, and this is something I remember back from my first days in real estate, all of you folks that have been out there, well, you've heard the term location, location, location. That means everything in real estate. But what I've seen with the ups and downs over the last 3 decades is when the market is super, super hot, a poor location will still sell for a premium just like everything else. And this can mean backing up to a busy street, siding to a busy street, maybe being in proximity to a commercial area, maybe having high tension wires behind, anything that creates a little bit of a subpar psychological feel for the location, or even a geographical deficit. Those have been selling. And those are the ones, I will be honest with you, even under $1 million, I'm starting to see on the market just a little bit longer, where things used to sell in a weekend. I'm seeing a week, 10 days or so with that. What about you, Lane?
I haven't been looking as far, my buyers aren't really looking for those particular locations, and we have had listings in those particular locations. So I wouldn't say like wholeheartedly, yes, that's what I'm seeing as well. But you will notice, like, for some of the buyers that we are helping, the ones that are still active maybe are the ones that do back to inside to a busier street and maybe are a little bit overpriced. And those are the only ones that are really available for them to ride on. And at some point, these buyers aren't necessarily willing to settle for that because of how, I think it's maybe because of how high prices have gotten as well. Like, look, if we're going to pay these crazy high prices, which we're willing to do, and if we're willing to, still proceed with, 3.5 interest rates, which we're willing to do, I want the house to be like, check off every box that I want. So they're not really settling as much. And when we've been trying to echo earlier, maybe a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when we were talking about what advice do we give to buyers, and we said patience, a lot of buyers are showing great patience, which is good because they're not wanting to settle.
No, absolutely. And Lane, let me qualify that previous statement. It's not that our buyers are searching or that we're searching for them for inferior locations. I see that as an arbiter of what's happening in the marketplace. We do believe in location, location, location. And we also counsel our sellers, or our buyers rather, against buying inferior locations just because the market's hot, because we don't know at what point in the future they're going to be selling. And we want to make sure that we have invested in a good location with all of the factors that create value moving forward. As we say, you can't move a house, but you can always improve it.
No.
What I was saying was simply, as I watch the marketplace as a whole, and I'm looking at all the properties on the market, I'm starting to see the ones with the inferior locations sitting out there just a little bit longer, which is going back to what you said, saying the buyers are just putting the brakes on and saying, you know what, if we're going to be paying all this money, we'd rather wait than just jump into the mix and be in a frenzy with everybody else and get an inferior location.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think a part of it too is the inventory for inferior locations might be going up from what I'm noticing. And the reason why is because the people that own them, they own a house that backs to a busy, they know that they own a house that backs to a busy street, and it's a really hot market. And it's the best time to sell for those particular locations to take advantage of it. So my guess is like they don't want to be back to a busy street anymore. They don't want, like what you call an inferior location. So now it's time to take advantage of a market because they know that this is the best chance that they have at selling that particular home and finding a home that's not in an inferior location.
Absolutely, right on.
Yeah, but what do you think is happening? Maybe is it because the interest rates are going up? Is it because prices hit a level where like buyers are putting their foot down and saying, this is it. We're drawing a line in the sand. We can't go any higher than this. Are we seeing more inventory come to the market? What are you thinking is the reason why we might be sensing, a normalization, if you will?
I think it's a little bit of all of that. And we also have to realize too, in our marketplace here, it's different than some of the other areas of the country where there may be folks that are perhaps, there's a speculation, I think, and Lane, you might know more about this than I do. There's speculation moving ahead that folks are going to be in some distressed situations. There's some residual effect from COVID, lack of employment, et cetera. We're seeing, as you've known from previous shows, that most of the homeowners in Southern California are sitting on record amounts of equity. So, and then the buyers are putting down large down payments and a lot of times cash. So we're not looking for a distressed market with regards to seller distress and being able to sell moving forward. So I want to clarify that. So back to Lane's question, however, I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. But what I'm hearing from our clients is they're willing to draw a line in the sand. They've said, you know what? Affordability is there. Sure, rates tick up a little bit, but there's just a psychological barrier to paying that much more than where things have already gone. And if indeed throughout the marketplace, enough of the buyers have that mentality, they'll withdraw for a little bit, and then basic economics will come into play. The supply will grow a little bit, and therefore that demand has dropped a bit.
Yeah, it was almost unhealthy to see how crazy prices were getting, you know. So this is, in a way, this isn't a bad thing, because I'm using the word normalization. It's getting back to what should be normal. What we were seeing over the last few months was not normal, and it should not be like that. And it should not remain like that. It's not normal, because you want a marketplace that benefits both the buyers and the sellers. You want the buyers to be able to get the homes that they want, but you also want the sellers to be able to sell the homes at the prices that they want as well. So you want more of a balanced market, and what it's still not balanced, by the way. We're just saying is the seesaw shifting a little bit, and you know, we might be feeling that it is starting to.
I think you're right on, Lane. I love the analogy of a seesaw. It's just shifting a little bit. And one of the things that we talked about on our team huddle call this morning was that, with the exception of maybe, you know, a little bit of time in the 2008 financial crisis, since I've been in the business since 1988, we've always seen a bit of a preference to the seller side of the market. I can always remember a shortage of inventory, always remember the good homes having multiple offers. And this is throughout my 30 plus year tenure in real estate. So when we say a balanced market, I still believe the market in our coastal Orange County area and in the inland areas of Orange County, Long Beach, Lakewood, et cetera, it's still going to be favorable to the sellers no matter what, because we also have a dearth of land. There's nothing left to build on for the most part. There's a little bit of land in South Orange County. Otherwise, we're done. So I think that's going to keep the supplies tight, you know, forever, basically, as long as we're in business.
Even during the Great Recession, you know, homes were nationally maybe going down, 50%, but they weren't down 50% in Orange County. So Orange County is a little bit different marketplace than the rest of the country.
Exactly.
You know, affordability is a little bit higher. People have higher incomes here. Now with like equity that you're mentioning, a lot of people have equity in their homes, so they're able to withstand a correction a lot easier. Also, the lenders have not really eased at all. They're still pretty difficult to get a loan, and you have to qualify. You can't. What would they say before? All you had to do was fog a mirror, and you got a loan. Yeah, that's all you had to do, right? And you don't. That's not like that anymore. You still have to show savings. You still have to show cash. You still have to show a good debt to income ratio, and they're not easing up yet at all.
No, Lane, you know, you're absolutely right on with that. And I think this is a really good conversation to have, because, as we said, today's call is more based on experience and what we're actually seeing out there versus stats that we might pick up that come from a market that's 3,000 miles away from us. We want to be clear as a disclaimer, we do not have a crystal ball out there, but from what we have seen, what we are seeing, we're not seeing a significant shift to a crazy buyer's market. So I don't want to tell these buyers out there, hey, just sit on the fence and you're going to have your pick like a kid in a candy store in the next 6 months to a year. But I think our prediction is we are seeing some shifting right now, which is putting a little bit of an ease on that. And we just don't know how much more easing we'll see.
Yeah, and it could be just a 2-week blip, that we noticed over the last week, and then all of a sudden things go back to craziness again. Because there was a time actually that I remember a couple of years ago, the narrative from a lot of real estate agents when you would talk to them, as far as like, do you have offers on the listing? Things are changing, right? And things are starting to slow down and go down. Then a couple of weeks after that, it just took off. So just because we're saying that things are slowing down over the next week, this is just a 2-week sample size. But speaking of stats, Scott, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump into some stats just to take a look.
I love it.
What we're looking at is straight from InfoSparks. We're looking at the entire MLS, so CRMLS, which basically takes up of most of Southern California. So we're talking not just Orange County. So it's a large sample size. Down here at the bottom, we can look at a couple different things. So one we're noticing new listings are starting to increase again. Now, for me, and I'd like to hear your take on this too, Scott, for new listings, maybe is it because people are starting to get vaccinated and they feel a little bit more comfortable about putting their house on the market and allowing people to come through their homes and take a look?
I think that's very true, Lane. And we have to remember, we had unprecedented activity last year in the middle of the lockdown. I mean, just, the Vegas odds makers would have all lost money because I cannot believe how active our market was. And we know, reading back on the stats, home prices were off the charts, and then home sales were off the charts, actually. And that was in the middle of a pandemic. And we still had people from, ages, 20 to 85, 90 years old saying we're moving on with life and we want to put our homes on the market. So I can only think that as things open up a bit and the vaccinations are taking hold, that there's got to be a large segment of that population that wanted to sell but wasn't quite as comfortable as the folks that we saw and that we were dealing with. So I think you're right on, Lane. I've got to see that in the next 90 days that some of this pent up seller demand kind of hits the market.
Yeah, and just because we're seeing an increase of new listings does not mean that inventory is increasing. And we'll show you that in a second too, because if you look at closed sales are up as well. So yes, it's kind of, we're looking at an increase of new listings and we're looking at an increase of closed sales. This means there's a lot of buyers out there that are able to handle that influx of new listings. And so the overall active supply that's available for buyers that are still left that haven't found something doesn't mean it's going up. And we can get to that stat as well.
I think you're right, Lane. And would you clarify? Because I think you've educated me a lot right now. When we say that, when we see closings are up as well, that just means there's more listings hitting the market, and that's helping feed those buyers that are out there. So it's not going to mean in any time soon a larger standing inventory. It's just kind of filling the gap for all the buyers that are already out there.
Yeah, so when we opened the show and we mentioned that we had listings with 20, 30, so I think the highest that I've had to compete against was 42 offers on a home. Maybe there's not 42 offers on a home because there's more new listings coming to the market. Maybe there's 10 or whatever, whatever number you mentioned as well, Scott. But there's still multiple listings because we still have all these buyers in the marketplace still ready, willing, and able to buy. Yeah. So it's a good thing that there's more listings coming to the market. But
huge.
Yeah, but if you look at the month supply, month supply is still ridiculously low.
Ridiculously low, yeah.
Ridiculously low. So we're looking at that 1.2. I know I've mentioned it on every stats call, but neutral market historically has always been about 4. So we can still triple our inventory. We still need more new listings coming to the market, and it'll be a healthier marketplace. It's not going to be a frenzy for sellers to get whatever price that they want anymore. But that's still, in a way, a sorry sellers out there, but that's still a good thing because buyers, they need to get homes too. They can't keep missing out.
Yeah. Well, Lane, you know what? One thing I'd like to ask you, though, given that the 4-month supply is a neutral market, I'd love to see a stat perhaps that says, when was the last time that our marketplace here in Orange County and surrounding areas has been with a 4-month supply? As I mentioned earlier, from my boots on the ground for 3.5 decades, I don't think I've ever seen a market where I would call it neutral. Maybe a couple little blips.
It looks like August 2019, so not too long ago was considered neutral, right? So but 4 to 6 is still considered neutral. So if you're looking around here, this is still, even though it's a little bit higher than 4 here, this is still considered a neutral. Anything below this line, so here in 2018, late 2018, late 2017, early 2018, still favoring the buyers a little bit more. Up here, even though it's not quite above 5 there, it's considered neutral. So nothing a buyer's market. Now, if we go to max here, let's see. There we go, max. So when you're looking at in 2008, this was the housing crisis, if you will.
Yes.
The Great Recession. Now that's why it's ridiculously high. There's so much inventory there, but it took maybe a year until we got back down to neutral. So it wasn't a crazy buyer's market for that long. I mean, it was crazy. If you bought a home, it looks like February, January 2008, you probably got a really low price at that time, and maybe you did really well. You probably bottomed out 2009, 2010, but it's the neutral. It went neutral, and then you can see where we're at now. It's how low it really is. It's still very, very low.
I agree with the stats, Lane, but let's talk for a minute about just kind of, again, this is all no script, off the cuff today for those viewing. In our real estate practice, with the exception of that little blip of time in 2008, I have to really say most of our listings, no matter what the price point is, have been on the market less time than that average stat you show. And oftentimes we would still have 2 or 3 offers. And then conversely, the buyers that we're working with, the properties that they're looking at, it was probably more common than not that we would be competing with 1 or maybe a third, 3 offers on a property. I always remember feeling that competitiveness with my buyers, and for the most part, having more than 1 offer with our listings.
Yeah, the only time we've ever been in it looks like in what's considered a buyer's market is that 1 year. Everything else has been neutral or a seller's market. So I actually, like, now that I have this up again, unscripted, I'm just curious to see what days on the market would be for Max. So the average days on the market, even in 2008, right? January 2008, the average day is 86. That's still, or median, excuse me. Let me look at the average. Average probably higher. Let me see. There you go. Average 100. So 3 months was the average.
Yeah.
So that still wasn't really that long, even though things are starting to go down. Like, I don't think 3 months is that long, because I remember when I started in 2012, it's still about 90 there when I started in real estate here. So historically, I've always been used to like 30 to 45 days, average days on the market. So now when we're down here and the average is less than a month, median, I think it's like about a week. Let's see, median is exactly a week. That is something that I'm still getting used to. It's not like it's been like this forever. This is a new thing. This is something that's happened over the last year, and something that, like, even look, this time, let's see, we're April of 2019. So just 2 years ago was 23 days.
Yeah. And I guess for our friends and people that have friends and family across the country, that still seems crazy, shockingly low when, even in a good market, people in the East and the Midwest are used to their homes being on the market 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. So we are definitely in a completely different space out here. You know what, Layden, I think this has been a great show. And again, thank you for always being the stats guy. I can count on you for being so prepared with that. What would our advice be for buyers and sellers moving forward after today? Again, we've said there's a possibility this is just a blip, and they can always come back to our show and make sure that we're going to be giving them information as we see it, timely, and accurate. But what would be the advice leaving today's show that we might give the buyers and sellers out there?
For the buyers, okay, I would say one thing: still be patient, but don't settle either. So don't get too excited because we have, like, I wouldn't say too excited, but don't jump on something if it's not 100% perfect, because there's a chance based on the trajectory of where inventory is going, or new listings are going, that's something that might fit with that it will be less competitive to get in. So don't settle, but still be patient. For the sellers, I would say don't get greedy. Don't get too greedy. That's what I would say, because right now you still want to take advantage of a great market, a great seller's market, but you can't necessarily just throw $100,000 more than the most recent comp anymore and just get it. I think that if you price it well, you price what's considered fair market value, that's your best chance at still selling with multiple offers and getting it bid up, because the marketplace is what's going to dictate your value, right? So if your house is worth $1 million and you put it up for 800,000, you're going to get 50 offers and it's going to get bid up to $1 million, if not more. If your house is worth $1 million and you put it up for 1.2, it'll sit for 30 days, 60 days. People are going to think what's wrong with it. And you're probably going to have to go lower than market value eventually, lower than $1 million to get it sold. So just be smart about your pricing. I would say, don't price too high, because that might hurt you in the end. Even if you feel like you priced a little bit low, the market will tell you if it was low, and it'll get shot up in price and value.
And absolutely. And if you do price this a little bit low, you're going to be creating that auction mentality. But it does factor in who the agent is when it comes time to navigate those multiple offers and to get that bidding war going with your top 2 or 3. Again, I'm not going to toot our own horn, but there is a difference in letting the market find your price and then taking that to the next delta, that next degree, with that final nuanced last set of negotiations between the top tier of buyers.
Yeah, and I'm happy you used the word auction, because like our coach recently said that real estate agents are almost like auctioneers in a way, because when you hire an auction company, there are several auction companies out there, just like there are several real estate agents out there, but you want the auction company that has a good client base, that knows how to market, that knows how to bring in the most qualified buyers for those particular things. So exactly what real estate agents do, but they also know how to price things, where to start the bids, to make sure that you get the highest value in the end. And then also there's reserves. So like if the seller doesn't want to sell that particular item for a certain price, then it doesn't sell. You put a reserve on it. So that's exactly what we are in a way. Sellers have their bottoms, right? Yes. They have their bottom price. They like hire real estate agents based on how do they market a home, how they can bring the qualified buyers. And then in a way, we're like, do we see a million, 1 million? Do we see 105, 105, 105? Do we see 1.1, 1.1, 1.1 in the back corner? Do we hear 1.2, 1.2? And then eventually we settle at what's best for the seller. And lately, especially in the last 3 months, the sellers have been absolutely happy with what are the prices and the auction model have ended up.
You couldn't be more right on. My smile is broadening here because I follow the classic car market, and I love watching the auctioneers do their magic. And there's some auctioneers that are so much stronger than others, and they'll target at the end of the auction those top 2 buyers that are sitting in opposite corners up in the gallery, and they'll pit them against each other, and you can see the eye contact going back and forth, because it becomes a psychological battle too, because someone wants to be the winner. They want to get that vehicle, just like they want to get that house. There's a psychological factor that comes into play, and that's where the magic and the fun begins if you're a good auctioneer, because you can get that delta, that extra margin of profit for the seller, no matter what the commodity is, whether it's a piece of art, a house, a classic car. I get excited when we get to that.
Well, how about when they have those final 2 pinned down at the end, and they have like an auction representative standing next to them, whispering in their ear, "You can do it. What's $5,000 more? What's 5,000 more? You can do it." And they're just trying to build them up. Like, in a way, that's what that's kind of like what we are for our sellers too. Of like, we're just trying to maximize them as much as we can for our sellers, and we're those like representatives in the buyer's ear of like, "What's $5,000 more? You can do it." It's like 5,000 financed over 30 years is what. $150 a month. You can do $150 a month, so it's like, that's just, we kind of are almost auctioneers.
Oh yeah, we can go in the game forever, right, Lane? I mean, we have, how many of those comments do we have? Like, hey, Mr. Buyer's agent, do you really want to go out there and start your search all over again and be competing once again? Just that little bit of extra right now, you can sign on the dotted line, and the house can be your clients, and you can be a hero. We've got. We love the game.
That's exactly what those car guys are doing too. When is this car ever going to be available for you to bid on again? Like stuff like stuff like that. And then eventually, there is a top price where people out of, obviously, but
absolutely. And we should probably get off our soapbox, because again, that's the part that Lane, Phillip, and we just love so much when we get to that point, that again, to those top 2 bidders, if you will, to really, really put our A game on and go for that last little bit of money. But anyway, probably time to wrap up, Lane.
I think
I've had fun today. I know we've been a little bit less scripted, more just really experiential, but I've learned a lot from you today, and I really appreciate you bringing those stats to the table.
No problem. Honestly, every time I go on every week, I like to be kind of unscripted. We might have like an outline of where we think the show's going to head, but if I'm scripted, it's kind of boring. It's like, you just want something that's real. You want something that's honest. You want something that's just thinking what my true opinions are, in a way, whether you like them or not. Or whether I'm right or not, who knows? But I'm still just telling you what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, and based on stats, facts, and history.
I love it. And I think that's a great foundation that, we always will bring to our show. And we promise that based on facts, but also going to be rooted in what we're seeing and what we're doing every day out there, because we love what we do. We have a passion for serving our customers and our clients. And we hope that we provide enough information for you to be armed and dangerous for whatever your next move is going to be.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for watching the SnL show. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them in the comment section on Facebook or YouTube. And the best thing that you can do to show your support, to show your love, is to share it. Share it to your page, share it to a friend that you think would find value in what we had to say today. And then if you want to be featured on the next show, or you want your question featured, go ahead and leave that in the comments too. We'll make sure to get to it. So thank you so much for always being a fan and watching us here on the SnL show.
Have a great week, everybody.